A heated U.S. Senate debate, the issue that had the candidates calling each other hypocritical, and where they differed on key issues such as immigration and health care.
And I watched the debate with a focus group of undecided voters who they say the clear winner was.
I don't know how you can lose $1 billion running a casino.
Big names including Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden were in town this week, rallying for support in advance of the final presidential debate.
And a stadium deal is done. I'll break down the final package after a battle in the legislature.
From 8 News Now, this is Politics Now with Steve Sebelius and Patrick Walker.
Well, I'm sorry to say nothing really happened in politics this week. No, just kidding. Many things, including the one and only Senate debate right here in Nevada. It was on Channel 8 Friday between Democratic former Attorney General Cortez-Masto and Republican Congressman Joe Heck, and it was moderated by my co-host here. Thanks for joining us. I'm Patrick Walker.
And I'm Steve Sebelius. Thanks again for joining us. And I want to thank my co-moderators of that debate, 8 News Now anchor Denise Valdez and Univision Entravision anchor Tatiki Felix, as well as Canyon Springs High School, where the debate was held. Thanks also to the Clark County School District Police and the North Las Vegas Police, who kept us all safe. Now, the debate started by addressing the elephant in the room, Heck withdrawing his support from Donald Trump last weekend.
And as an emergency department doctor, I've taken care of far too many women who have been victims of domestic violence or sexual assault. And I have great empathy for anyone who ever had to experience such a tragedy. You know, my wife was the victim of domestic abuse in a prior relationship. And so the decision I made was an extremely personal decision.
It is astonishing to me that for 9 months, he was Donald Trump's biggest supporter. When Donald Trump was making fun of the disabled, attacking Mexicans, calling them rapists and criminals, and calling women names.
Well, you can see Catherine Cortez-Masto was on the attack early, and she stayed on the attack for most of the debate.
Yeah, absolutely. She did everything she could to put the words Joe Heck and Donald Trump in the same sentence as often as possible. She was working hard to make sure he got no credit for finally saying Trump should step down as the party's nominee.
Well, the candidates also answered a question on their differences on immigration reform.
We've got 21st century technology, whether it is drones, it is satellites. The technology we can use now can help us address the border issues. We've put funding already into the border for bodies and resources, and we want to continue to do so.
If we don't fix our legal system, we will continue to have the problems that we face today. The fact is, when somebody does come through the legal channels and becomes a permanent legal resident, or even gets citizenship, they shouldn't have to wait 10 to 12 years in order to bring their spouse or their family over. So let's talk about fixing the legal immigration system as well. Let's develop a robust guest worker program that meets the unmet demands here in the United States while not disenfranchising unemployed Americans.
Well, Joe Heck also even pointed out a previous column by Steve Sebelius here, saying he called out his leadership for not passing immigration reform during the debate.
Yeah, that's an excellent debate strategy. I was sad to see Catherine Cortez-Masto didn't mention her favorite Steve Sebelius column during the debate. Perhaps the testiest exchange, however, happened when both candidates accused each other of not answering a question about the tax code, and they were both right.
Neither one of you have a hard figure. Last 30 seconds on this topic, Ms. Cortez-Masto.
No, it's typical. He doesn't answer the question and dances around it. I'm absolutely willing to explore Hillary Clinton's proposal, but here's my concern. I know he's concerned about the people in New York, but I'm concerned about the people here in Nevada. I want to make sure that if we are going to talk about doing this, we're pulling these working families out of poverty. Do I have a figure for you right now? No, but I'm absolutely willing to explore it to ensure we're fighting for the families here in Nevada.
Okay, Mr. Heck, final 30 seconds on this.
Well, I find it hypocritical that I didn't answer the question when she didn't give a number as well. Look, the fact is, we need to do everything possible to make our tax code fairer, flatter, and broader.
Well, as the moderator, Steve, you had that unique view sitting right in the middle of all of that. So what's your big takeaway coming out of this?
Well, you know, these two candidates are probably two of the most practiced, most cautious people in all of Nevada politics. I think I could have gone one-on-one with either of them, standing under those hot lights for 4 hours, and neither one of them would have made a mistake at all.
Well, while Steve was over at Canyon Springs High School, I was right here at the station with a focus group of 14 undecided voters. When we brought them in, they were split among Republicans, Democrats, and independents. Here's what they had to say about the debate. Well, we're checking in with our panel of undecided voters coming in, and just to make sure everybody was undecided coming in tonight, correct, as to Catherine Cortez-Masto or Joe Heck. So after watching the debate, show of hands, who has made a decision? First, who has made a decision? That's okay. So almost everybody. We still have a couple of undecideds. Who is voting for Joe Heck? Who has made a decision to decide for Joe Heck? And that would be 1, 2, 3 out. So 10 votes for Joe Heck. Catherine Cortez-Masto. 1 over here. So I want to go ahead and start with you, Mark. Why did you decide that you want to go for Catherine Cortez-Masto?
I just think she's more grounded in Nevada issues and just seems more just the everyday person.
All right, Kathy, I want to check in with you. Tell me about what you thought of who won the debate tonight.
I think Joe Heck did because he stayed on topic. He didn't go on the attack of his opponent and deflect answering the question by attacking his opponent. He had very concise ideas and a plan, and he stuck to it.
Our panel thought very strongly about negativity, not wanting to hear that. They had heard enough of the ads through the campaign season. So we want to look at what we heard tonight and what we didn't hear. One of the big things that we heard about, we talked about guns. A lot of folks wanted to hear about gun control. So let's just open it up. Who thought they heard about everything they wanted to hear? So you did hear about everything you wanted to hear. What specifically rang out to you, guns or otherwise?
Specifically, Joe Heck pretty much is who I stand for in result to the gun issue. I mean, he mentioned the TSA no-fly list, and it's ridiculous to put people on a list that has no due process, no way to get off the list, no real reason to get on the list. So, I mean, keeping guns out of their hands really isn't an issue because, like he said, there's less than 1,000 people on that list. And like I said before, with background checks, law-abiding citizens aren't the problem. It's the criminals that are the problem. So I pretty much fully stand behind Joe Heck. He's rated positively with the NRA, and I think we all should take that in consideration.
This debate was the only debate we saw with our candidates tonight for the campaign season, so there were a lot of things we heard, but there were also things we didn't hear. Who wanted to hear more? And be honest, who wanted to hear more? About half. I want to come over to you, Wanda. We were talking a little bit earlier. What didn't you hear tonight that you wanted to hear?
I didn't hear him explain how he could be a doctor and yet vote 8 times to defund Planned Parenthood. There are so many, my background is healthcare. There are so many issues, women's issues that get taken care of in Planned Parenthood. It's more than just abortion.
Well, we talked about a lot more things during our post-debate show, a lot of that available online. But as you can see, a pretty solid win within our group for Joe Heck. So now we'll have to see if that translates out to the polls. Yeah, great stuff with that group. Well, joining you back here was the I-Team's George Knapp. He moderated a panel of experts. Here's a debate breakdown from Battleborn Progress Executive Director Annette Magnus from the left and KXNT radio host Alan Stock from the right.
I think we all agree that was a pretty spirited debate, a lot of meat on the bones there. Who won and why?
I think Catherine Cortez-Masto won. She looked poised. She came out swinging, which I think is a good thing. And she had very specific answers for a lot of the questions that I think are key, especially immigration. That's one of the big issues. And gun violence prevention. Question 1's going to be key this year in Nevada. And I think she won on both of those issues handily.
And you think the Joe Heck won?
75-25 easily. I think he was much more poised. I think she was much more rehearsed, and it came off very phony. And she came off angry, and she was attacking him, and he withstood those attacks like Mike Pence did when Kane attacked him. So I mean, he came off as very professional, very senatorial. He's had the experience, and I think that came across in the debate.
What was his best moment? On what issue?
He was very specific on immigration and the things that he wanted to do. I think she was a little more vague when she talked about, the border security. that was like almost an afterthought. She concentrated more on Dreamers. She was more concerned with Dreamers than she was border security, and he was more concerned with border security than just about anything else. That was his number one issue. And I think the number one issue for people when they consider the issue of immigration in general here, or immigration reform, if you want to put it that way, I think it has to do with border security. People say secure the borders, and once the borders are secured, then we can deal with everything else. You can't keep having a flood of illegals coming in, you know, while you're talking about what kind of benefits you're going to give them.
Her best moment, her strongest issue.
I think when she actually asked him the question about whether he took a pay cut when the government shutdown happened, I thought her question to him was great. I thought her follow-up responses were great. Talking about the fact that she actually took a pay cut when the furloughs happened at the state government level. She gave $40,000 back and said, no, I'm not going to take it. If my staff has to have a pay cut, so do I. I thought that was an amazing moment because it showed humility. It showed she understands what it's like to be a leader, and she is a real leader, and I thought that was a great moment for her.
But what she did do also, he did turn around and say to her, you know, I mean, you gave the money to charity, and we in Congress made sure that we refunded the people. Once everything came back, everyone was on furlough got the money back. Everyone did.
But Joe he kept cashing his paycheck while everybody else had to wait.
But everyone who was on furlough got paid. Everyone did.
It's a little confusing about the government shutdown, how that came about. Joe Heck pointing out that he didn't actually vote to shut it down, but somehow it happened anyway.
16 votes led to the shutdown, and he was a part of all of those votes. And he said that he was going to stick to his guns. Again, there was an article in The Sun, October of 2013, that laid out the entire thing of what Joe Heck did to lead to the government shutdown and how he supported the government shutdown. And there's evidence out there. 16 votes led us to that. He is an obstructionist, and he would do the same thing with our courts if he had the opportunity. And so we know his record from Congress. We don't want to put that back in the Senate. We need more people who will work across the aisle.
You know what's interesting about the courts? It's very interesting you bring that up. I don't agree with the other stuff either, but the courts, let's talk about that.
Yes.
Because they said, is there a litmus test? And he said no. And then she said, well, she gave certain litmus issues. And then she said, well, I respect Kagan and Sotomayor. And then he said, well, I respect Scalia. And she said, oh, well, see, you do have a litmus test. He said, no. You said you respected a couple of the justices. I say I respect them. It's a personality issue. His word, by the way. So it wasn't a litmus test.
Well, we have a lot of extra material, of course. I bet. A lot happening on Friday night. You can go to our website, LasVegasNow.com, to watch the whole debate. You can see more with the focus groups and a lot of supporting information we put up, backing up those questions we were asking. So if you're still unclear on where those candidates stand, you can use some of that information to help guide you.
And to go along with our Senate debate, we conducted a poll this week. It was done by JMI Polling and Analytics, 600 likely voters. First up in that Senate race, Catherine Cortez-Masto had a slight lead of about 5 points, 40% to 35%. That's just outside the margin of error of 4%.
And let's take a little deeper look into the poll. Driving that lead for Catherine Cortez-Masto is this lead she has among non-white voters, 49 to 21%, with 30% still undecided.
Now, to what Joe Heck has going for him. Cortez-Masto has a lead in Washoe and Clark County, but Joe Heck is ahead 52 to 26 in the rest of the state's rural counties. We'll have more on these polls on LasVegasNow.com.
And I think a lead within CD3 as well, his current congressional district. He does have
that makes sense.
Well, this is really the first time we have seen Catherine Cortez-Masto with a lead other than the initial poll in this race back in May. So we did this poll before the Senate debate. But Steve, do you think flipping on Trump maybe is what caused Heck's numbers to slide in our poll?
Yeah, I think that's a real possibility. As you saw during the debate, Democrats don't want to give Joe Heck any credit whatsoever for abandoning Trump. But the Republican base is angry that he has done so, and they're condemning him as well. So that might explain a slight drop in his numbers.
Well, Hillary Clinton rallies the troops.
He's not just insulted women, he's an equal opportunity insulter. He's insulted everybody.
We'll talk about Clinton's visit to Las Vegas and the first one that was not at a union hall this election season for her. Next.
Securities USA Action is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Joe Heck's and Donald Trump's views on women are disturbing. Heck voted to defund Planned Parenthood 10 times. He was even willing to shut down the government over it. And they both outlaw abortion.
Do you believe in punishment for abortion? The answer is that there has to be some form of punishment.
While Heck co-sponsored legislation to criminalize abortion, even in cases of rape. Donald Trump and Joe Heck are not for you. DSEC is responsible for the content of this advertising.
I'm Joe Heck, and I approve this message.
Prosecutorial misconduct, sloppy legal practice, politicizing her office, partisan bully. That's what they're saying about Catherine Cortez-Masto's failed record as Attorney General. It gets worse. Masto even prosecuted an innocent man and tried to send him to jail just to protect Harry Reid's political career. Reid thanked Masto by spending millions of dollars on her campaign. Catherine Cortez-Masto, the most corrupt attorney general in Nevada history.
Pay to play, no bid contracts, shady deals, cronyism, junkets, corruption. Call it what you will. Catherine Cortez-Masto calls it politics as usual. While Masto took lavish lobbyist trips and traveled around the world with special interests, back home, Masto rigged the system, doling out millions in taxpayer money to political cronies. Catherine Cortez-Masto, another typical corrupt career politician. Exactly what we don't need in Washington. NRSC is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Welcome back to Politics Now.
Well, the battleground state of Nevada is being flooded with presidential and vice presidential candidates this month. Democratic nominee Hillary Clinton was in town trying to rally her troops.
And normally when we see Clinton campaigning here in Las Vegas, we've been seeing her rallying at the Union Halls. But in her last stop before next week's debate, she spoke with a larger crowd at the Smith Center. Take a look. Hillary Clinton stumping in Las Vegas Thursday, trying to shore up support in the Silver State and reaching out to voters on the lawn outside the Smith Center. The former Secretary of State spoke about strengthening the economy, but also went after her opponent, Donald Trump.
Las Vegas, you know something about this. I don't know how you can lose $1 billion running a casino.
The visit comes less than a week after her running mate, Senator Tim Kaine, hosted a rally with the local carpenters union. Clinton has a narrow lead over Trump in Nevada, just over a point in an average of polls over the last 3 weeks. And Wednesday, she looked to use Trump's remarks against him as she tries to maintain her lead.
He's not just insulted women, he's an equal opportunity insulter. He's insulted everybody.
Clinton also campaigned for Democratic Senate candidate Catherine Cortez-Masto. In a tight Senate race, Cortez-Masto has consistently polled just behind Republican Congressman Joe Heck. But the margin is only a few points. And while Heck has tried to distance himself from Donald Trump as of late, Cortez-Masto called the move disingenuous.
The only reason Congressman Heck is unendorsing him now is because he's concerned about his political career. It's a desperate move to save his political career.
But is it enough to move the needle in the polls? Both candidates urging supporters to get out and vote early and trying to reach as many voters as possible. The election is now just 3.5 weeks away. Well, Catherine Cortez-Masto joined Clinton over at the Smith Center, but we haven't been seeing Joe Heck with these large-scale public rallies. But save for our poll, which came out on Friday, we really haven't seen the needle move too much either way.
Yeah, you haven't seen Heck at Donald Trump rallies even before he abandoned Trump, mostly because he knew, I think, some of the things that Trump was saying had the potential to damage his campaign as well.
Well, can Donald Trump win here in Nevada even after all of the recent bad coverage?
Oh, yeah, no, I think so. It's still possible. Our poll shows the race is still fairly close. It's 43% for Clinton, 41% for Trump. CBS News, their Battleground Tracker poll, had the spread at 6 points in the most recent poll, but turnout is going to be key. That's why we're seeing all these candidates and surrogates coming here. They want to energize the base to get people to turn out.
And don't forget, this week we have the debate coming up as well, so the candidates here once again.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a huge week.
No kidding. Well, Biden goes on the attack against Trump.
This guy declared bankruptcy 6 or 7 times, but he never was moved out of that penthouse.
I'll break down the vice president's trip here to Las Vegas this week. And a battle goes down in Carson City over funding a potential NFL stadium. I'll break that down as well in the next step coming up.
You've heard of a pack of wolves.
the pride of lions, a murder of crows. Well, we call this a rumble of Dodges. When you call one, you call them all.
Now get 20% off MSRP cash allowance on select 2016 Dodge Charger or Journey models in dealer stock.
One of the ways criminals avoid background checks is by going online and connecting with strangers to buy guns. As someone in law enforcement, I think that's dangerous. Millions of guns are sold through websites like this, most with no background checks, no questions asked. The law requires background checks in gun stores. Why don't we require them online? A few clicks of the mouse, now bad guy is armed and potentially dangerous, and that's a threat to all of us.
Yes on question 1.
I'm Jackie Rosen, and I approve this message.
The Tea Party Republicans in Congress want to cut Social Security.
And Danny Tarkanian wants to join them.
He is proud to call himself a Tea Party radical.
He wants to privatize Social Security.
Just like them.
Risking Social Security benefits on Wall Street.
Danny Tarkanian would raise the retirement age.
Just like the Tea Party Republicans in Congress.
They would take away what we've paid for out of every paycheck.
That's Tea Party radical for you.
Monday on Good Day, UNLV putting the final touches on the presidential debate.
The work wrapping up on campus before the candidates take the stage for the last time.
Plus, drivers get stuck in traffic around the convention center and it's driving them crazy. I reach out to the county to get you some answers.
And a breezy weekend blowing cooler temps into the valley will eventually make it feel more like autumn for the start of your work week. I've got your Weather Now forecast Monday on Good Day.
This is the Race Now, where we go over some of the other big stories this week, and boy, was it a big one. Let's start with the special session in Carson City. It lasted a week, but finally tomorrow, Governor Brian Sandoval will be signing a plan to raise the room tax to give $750 million toward an NFL stadium to try to lure the Raiders to Las Vegas.
Close but passed. It's a W. They use the football parlance, and it went fast. I mean, they must have felt they had the votes, and so they called for them quickly.
It was all profit on the private side and all liability, expense, and cost on the public side. It made no sense. If we were doing a business deal like that, nobody in their right mind would sign it.
Well, the stadium ultimately passed 28-13 in the assembly. That was the bare minimum to get the 2/3 required. The two potential stadium sites are being considered. That's the Valley High Golf Course and a plot of land near Russell Road west of the I-15. The convention center will also get $400 million from the room tax increase for their expansion. And the Nevada legislature also passed a bill which would allow the Clark County Commission to approve a sales tax increase for more cops. That has proved tricky to get past the commission in the past. Now, news that about $1 billion in road construction will also be needed popped up Friday night. NDOT says they already planned to do those projects. Catherine Cortez-Masto's camp broke out the big guns this week as well, with Vice President Joe Biden making a stop here to campaign on her behalf Thursday. They spoke to members of the Culinary Union and rallied outside the Smith Center. Biden talked about the importance of voting and criticized Donald Trump and Joe Heck for being out of touch with the middle class. He also rather reacted to recent accusations of sexual assault against the Republican frontrunner.
His admission of what is the textbook definition of sexual assault, I'm talking about Trump obviously, is not inconsistent with the way which he's abused power all along. Let him go.
Well, protesters interrupted that speech twice, and Biden ended up engaging them. And UNLV not the only group preparing for next week's presidential debate over at the campus. So is Metro. The undersheriff says he does have some concerns leading up to it.
My concern is as the rhetoric that continues with the two candidates and the two sides becoming more and more apart, that somebody may choose to try to disrupt this particular event. It's really important, though, because much like we do with the security situation for New Year's Eve, you cannot focus solely and entirely on that event.
Well, we will be out there next week as well. We're also learning more about the presidential debate, including the topics that have been released. We'll break down some of those for you next. Stay with us.
Catherine Cortez-Masto talks about the sex trafficking law she supported. But the first person Attorney General Cortez-Masto indicted under the sex trafficking law ended up with a plea deal for a lesser charge. is back on the street and not registered as a sex offender, even though he forced a 16-year-old girl into prostitution. Catherine Cortez-Masto, failing Nevada again. Senate Leadership Fund is responsible for the content of this advertising.
I fought for my country in Kosovo and Iraq, and I've been a Republican all my life. But I'm the father of 3 girls. I can't stand hearing Donald Trump call women pigs, dogs, and bimbos, and I sure don't want my daughters hearing it. I want my girls to grow up proud and strong, in a nation where they're valued and respected. Donald Trump's America is not the country I fought for, so I'm voting for Hillary Clinton.
I'm Hillary Clinton, and I approve this message.
I'm Catherine Cortez-Masto, and I approve this message.
They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists.
And Joe Heck says, I have high hopes we'll see Donald Trump become president.
I don't know what I said,
Heck says he completely supports Trump.
I would bomb the out of him.
And Heck?
Do you trust him having his finger on the nuclear button? I do. Why do you say that? Why wouldn't I?
Donald Trump and Joe Heck, wrong for Nevada.
One of the ways criminals avoid background checks is by going online and connecting with strangers to buy guns. As someone in law enforcement, I think that's dangerous. Millions of guns are sold through websites like this, most with no background checks, no questions asked. The law requires background checks in gun stores. Why don't we require them online? A few clicks of the mouse, now bad guy is armed and potentially dangerous, and that's a threat to all of us.
Yes on question 1.
After a big week of politics, next week promises to be just as packed. This is What to Watch, where we fill you in on those stories. First up, the presidential debate at UNLV is Wednesday. Fox News Channel host Chris Wallace will be moderating. The topics are set. It includes immigration, debt and entitlements, and the economy. We'll be live out there Tuesday and Wednesday to cover it for you, and you can watch the debate right here on Channel 8 at 6 with post-debate coverage as well.
And you can start casting those ballots on October 22nd when early voting begins. 97 different sites around Clark County. Since the year 2000, more people have voted before Election Day than on Election Day. Well, thanks for watching Politics Now.
We are your local election headquarters for the next year. Stay up to date online. Watch us every Sunday. See you next week.